During the Second World War, Winston Churchill was the leader of the British people. At the time, all of Europe was controlled by an evil dictator and by evil Nazi socialism. England was the last free country for the evil dictator to conquer. And in a speech called "We Will Fight on the Beaches," Winston Churchill said, "We will never, 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 never surrender." This shows the resolve of the people in the face of such great darkness. In today's gospel, Jesus teaches us to never, 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 never give up our faith. Never give up our faith in God. Never. In today's gospel, in Matthew chapter 15, we find the curious case of the Canaanite woman who encounters Jesus. Her daughter was tormented by a demon. She cried out for help from Jesus. She said, "Have pity on me, Lord." And this leads us to what I will call the 5 shocking moments of this gospel. And that's why I said never 5 times. Because in that first moment, Jesus does not say a word in answer to her. This is very unusual because we would think that you're Jesus, you're the God of love. Don't you reply to your people? But Jesus' response, surprisingly, was a non-response. That was his answer. For starters, at least. Jesus' silence was loud. And there's a reason for this. And then the second shocking moment here was when Jesus' own disciples came and said, "Hey, Lord, send her away. She's annoying. She keeps calling out after us." I mean, this Canaanite woman in these 5 shocking moments, isn't she like us? Aren't there moments where we say, "God, help me," and all we get is silence from God? Are there moments where we've just been down in the pits or depressed or anxious or going through maybe some clinical diagnoses or some darkness in our life and we call out to God with our faith and all we get is nothing? Doesn't that happen? And then not only that, when we bring it to the church or Jesus' disciples or to our parishes or even our ministries, we say, "Help me," and nothing happens. Doesn't that happen as well? And then in this third moment, this third shocking moment, Jesus said to his disciples, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Why does he treat the woman this way? That even when she's asking for help, the great God who has taken care of his people says, "Well, I'm only sent to these people here, to the Jews. They represent our family life." And hasn't that happened where our own culture or our own close members of our family maybe haven't helped us in our moment of need? And then this fourth shocking moment, Jesus says to the woman in a very shocking way, "It is not right to take the food of children and throw it to the dogs." I stutter as I say it because it's just so, it seems to be insulting. And of course, Jesus isn't going to insult people. There's got to be a deeper reason why he said that. And some biblical commentators will say things like, well, maybe it's to test her, or maybe it's to show hyperbole. Like, whatever reason, it definitely gets our attention, doesn't it? And don't we have moments like that too, where not only when we're asking for people's help, they add insult to injury? And then this last shocking moment, the Canaanite woman said, "Please, Lord," Even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from the table of the masters. She herself has admitted it. So even God, the church, her family, her race, her people, her own life, and even herself seem like stumbling blocks to her faith. And yet, even after all those moments of being seemingly insulted, because of course Jesus doesn't insult, he loves us. Even after God himself seems like he doesn't want me to have faith, or the church, or my ministry. Even then, she never gave up her faith in God. We are like the Canaanite woman. She's not only a Gentile, she's the lowest of the Gentiles. She's a Canaanite from the tribe of Canaan. And not only that, at the time, she's a woman. So she has, at the time, even lower social standing. And not only that, she's a widow, which means she has an even lower social standing because there's no man to take care of her. But as we see in today's gospel, Jesus, by the end of the gospel, says, "O woman, great is your faith." So even in those moments in our lives when everything else, come Monday through Saturday, challenges our faith, we still believe. Even in the darkness of our lives. Even if it's just a thread. And we see this written in the book of the prophet Isaiah, where it's written that even the foreigner, for a Jew, a foreigner is somebody that you look down upon because they're outside the chosen people, at least the Jews of the time. But the book of the prophet Isaiah says, the foreigners who join themselves to the Lord, ministering to him, becoming his servants, keeping the Sabbath, and hold to his covenant, they I will bring to my holy mountain. And my house shall be a house of prayer for all people, not just a certain category of people, but all people. And so our faith should lead us to bringing who we believe in to all the nations. We shouldn't be, as Deacon Casey Walker from St. Basil's here in Vallejo said, we shouldn't be afraid of our faith. We shouldn't be ashamed of it. Like, oh goodness, I'm talking about God in public. Or I made the sign of the cross at the restaurant, or so-and-so is talking about God at our family party or something. We shouldn't be ashamed because we want all the nations to praise God. This is one of my favorite responsorial psalms. Oh God, let all the nations praise you. And what's happening today, dear brothers and sisters, we're seeing what is called an apostasy, or people leaving the church or leaving their faith. And I actually saw a recent map that was posted by Father Stephen Borlang, a retired priest. And he showed a map of Europe. And on that map, it showed the dark colors were countries where most of the country does not believe in God. And then the light colors were the countries where most of the people do believe in God. And in all of Europe, did you know the countries that in Western Europe, the countries that don't believe in God versus the countries that do believe in God? The countries that do believe in God today, there is only like 3 of them. Spain, Italy, and Ireland. The rest of the populations, most of the people do not believe in God. How did this happen? This is worse than the Second World War and Winston Churchill, because at the Second World War, at least most people believed in God. I mean, it's like trying to build God, the human race without God. And so we are called to be like this Canaanite woman, that even with all the hurdles in our life, our faith is hanging in there. It reminds me of my mom, who many years ago one time said, "Son, don't worry, I'm going to die a Catholic. I'm not going to leave my faith as hard as it gets. And, I'm not perfect and I've made mistakes in my life. But I'm going to fight to keep my faith. Never give up our faith in God. Because that's all that matters in life. Yesterday I had the privilege of baptizing 9 babies. And I reminded the families, the young families and the godparents, remember your faith in God. Because your faith, hope, and love will bring us to heaven, where we're meant to be. That's the foreigners spoken of in today's Bible isn't the foreigner of being an immigrant for those of us who are immigrants. But we are mainly immigrants because heaven is our home. We are the foreigners on this land, not just the Canaanite woman. And if we, as foreigners who've been exiled out of heaven, are like this Canaanite woman, then we're called to go back into heaven. And so in those moments, dear brothers and sisters, where we have a hard time with our faith, let's remember baptism helps us. Penance and reconciliation and confession will help us. The Holy Eucharist, which we will receive in a few minutes, will really help us. As we hear in the second reading from the letter of Paul to the Romans, he held us in disobedience that he might show mercy on all of us. The woman is us. The woman represents us. We are the church. And so Jesus is able to say, "O woman, O church, my dear people, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish. Even when I put all these hurdles before you, even when you're experiencing the difficulties of life and the joys of life, even when it feels like I want to give up. I have an illness. I feel like letting go. Jesus says, remember me. Never, 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 never give up our faith in God. Never.